Hello everyone, I am Sana and welcome to today's lecture which is about drugs and behavior. The topic will be covering following objectives. First is history of drugs. Second is effectiveness of drugs. Third is drugs and their consequences on behavior. Fourth is non-medical use of psychoactive drugs, amphetamine and its uses. Fifth is problems associated with amphetamine injecting. Sixth is psychological effects in novice drug users. Seventh is regular stimulant use, which includes tolerance and related problems. And the last one is concept of drugs in social groups. Let us begin with the history of drugs. Since before the dawn of civilization, humans have used drugs to alter their mood and behavior. Opium poppy, which is known as Papaver somniferum, seeds have been found by archaeologists in Neolithic burial sites. Some of the earliest writing on clay tablets from Mesopotamia describe laws to control alcohol consumption in local taverns. Many societies have discovered that different species of plant and fungi can induce powerful hallucinations. Native Americans have used the peyote cactus, which is known as Lophophora williamsi, to foster spiritual insights during their religious ceremonies. Vikings used the Amanita muscaria mushroom for its hallucinogenic and excitatory effects before raiding and pillaging in their longboats. Let us now talk about the effectiveness of drugs. Many drugs are taken for their curative or medicinal effects. In South American silver mines, for many centuries, the miners have chewed coca leaves containing cocaine to aid their physical and mental vigilance in working high in the oxygen-poor Andes. Tea, which contains caffeine, was recommended as a general tonic by sages in ancient China. In the Indian subcontinent, the Indian snake root, Rauwolfia serpentina, was used as a treatment for people suffering manic excitement or hallucinations and delusions. Its effectiveness at reducing the symptoms of schizophrenia has been scientifically confirmed in the 20th century. The advent of machines to produce cigarettes at the beginning of the 20th century led to a marked increase in tobacco consumption. Recent years have shown a resurgence of cigarette smoking among the young, particularly adolescent females. Alcohol use also shows no sign of reduction. Another legal drug, caffeine, is consumed by over 90% of adult population in their daily tea and coffee. Caffeine is also present in the fizzy soft drinks and chocolate bars consumed by children each day. Many other psychoactive drugs are deemed illegal, yet even the threat of long prison terms does not halt their popularity. Around 50 million Americans have smoked cannabis, marijuana. The use of amphetamine, cocaine, and heroin has increased in recent decades, while new recreational drugs have also been specifically designed for their mood-altering effects. Ecstasy first became popular in mid-1980s, and since then its use has steadily increased, with young people trying it at an increasingly early age. One of the most dramatic changes in modern society was the advent of effective psychoactive medicines in the 1950s. The first antipsychotic drug, chlorpromazine, was developed in 1950, and since then the management and treatment of schizophrenia have been dramatically changed. The advent of antidepressant drugs in 1957 led to a similar change in the treatment of people suffering from depression. Thus, we now have a range of drug treatments for two of the most severe psychiatric disorders. Antipsychotic drugs are only partially effective on their own. To maximize their effectiveness, they need to be complemented by behavioral therapy or social skills training. Another contentious area is the treatment of hyperactive young children with central nervous system stimulant drugs. The clinical diagnosis of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder is a very recent phenomenon, but since the early 1980s, an increasing number of young children have been given the diagnosis. Pharmaceutical companies are now attempting to develop nootropic drugs for Alzheimer's disease and other disorders associated with aging. If effective drugs for the elderly are successfully developed, the impact on society could become even more marked than the development of antipsychotic and antidepressant drugs in 1950s. Hundreds of drugs can affect mood and behavior. Central nervous system depressant drugs generate feelings of sleepiness and impair skill psychomotor performance. This is why piloting a plane or driving a car is so dangerous under the influence of alcohol. Opiate drugs like heroin and morphine are again similar in their effects, leading to feelings of euphoria and reduced physical as well as mental pain. Take amphetamine and cocaine as an example. Their origins are quite dissimilar. However, they each stimulate the release of the neurotransmitter dopamine and inhibit its activation. This explains why their psychoactive effects are so similar in terms of boosting mood and alertness. Let us now consider another drug group, the opiates. Different drugs in the opiate class all tend to have similar types of effects on other types of neurotransmitters such as neuropeptides, which is why they have similar behavioral effects. In an equivalent fashion, central nervous system depressant drugs all seem to affect GABA receptor. Drug effects on neurotransmission, normal behavior is dependent on a complex system of chemical messages passed between neurons in the brain. Each nerve cell or neuron communicates with the next neuron by means of chemicals called neurotransmitters. Psychoactive drugs exert their effects by increasing or decreasing the activity of these neurotransmitters. Now, we will talk about drugs and their consequences on behavior. The very first time a drug is taken, it has a different effect on neurotransmission than when it is taken 100 times later. The first ever cigarette will lead to nausea and sickness because nicotine stimulates the neurons in the vomiting centers of the brain stem. However, the 100th cigarette no longer induces feelings of nausea because neuronal tolerance has developed. In a similar way, a small amount of alcohol will induce feelings of lightheadedness and tipsiness in a novice drinker, whereas a heavy regular drinker would have no perceptible response. Neurons tend to adapt and change following regular drug use, and neuronal tolerance reflects these adaptive changes in neurotransmitter system. Psychoactive drugs modify behavior by altering neurotransmission. Some of these may be pleasant, but others may be unpleasant. Recreational drugs are taken for their pleasant effects. Alcohol can release social inhibitions and help foster feelings of closeness with other people. The caffeine in tea and coffee can help regular users maintain feelings of alertness. Antidepressant drugs can help relieve feelings of profound sadness. Antipsychotic drugs can reduce delusions and hallucinations and can enable those suffering from schizophrenia to lead more normal and contented lives. Every psychoactive drug has some positive uses, which is why they are taken. Yet, these same drugs also produce a range of negative effects. Alcohol can lead to increased aggression and antisocial behavior, while its disinhibitory effects cause many individuals to commit crimes that they would not have undertaken if they had remained sober. Most antidepressant and antipsychotic drugs generate unpleasant side effects such as drowsiness and dry mouth. Cigarette smokers soon develop nicotine dependency and gain no real benefits from their tobacco. They just need nicotine to function normally. Opiate users similarly develop drug dependency. One reason for these negative effects is drug tolerance. Therefore, most drugs have a balance of positive and negative effects. Thus, cocaine can make people feel alert, dynamic, and have all pleasant or desirable effects. Yet, it can also make them anxious, aggressive, and suspicious and reduce their inhibitions. Most psychotherapeutic drugs have advantageous ratio, with the benefits outweighing the unwanted side effects. Estimating the cost-benefit ratio for recreational drugs can, however, be more difficult since their positive and negative effects are influenced by numerous factors including dosage, frequency of use, and duration of use. Thus, two of the most widely used drugs in society, nicotine and alcohol, have numerous deleterious consequences. In the UK, tobacco smoking causes around 350 to 400 deaths each day, but regular cigarette smokers get no genuine psychological benefits from nicotine dependency. The anticholinesterase neostigmine is dropped directly onto the eye surface to relieve glaucoma, a condition characterized by raised intraocular pressure which, if untreated, can lead to blindness. The skin provides a method for administering several types of psychoactive drugs. Thus, transdermal nicotine patches contain a reservoir of drug which is slowly absorbed through the skin and provides a useful aid for smoking cessation. Transdermal scopolamine is also used to prevent the development of sea and air sickness, with the antimuscarinic drug scopolamine reducing cholinergic activity in the vomiting center of the brain stem. However, in both these cases, the drug is absorbed from the skin patch into the general circulation and is therefore actually a systemic route. Many drugs are administered by injection, a route often referred to as parenteral, since it avoids the gastrointestinal tract. Often, the complete dose or bolus is given rapidly under pressure using a hypodermic syringe. For humans, the three main routes are the skin, subcutaneous injection, into a vein, intravenous injection, and into muscles, intramuscular injection. Sometimes, raw plant material is chewed in order to release the psychoactive compound into the mouth cavity. Tobacco leaf chewing leads to oral cancers of the mouth, lips, jaw, and tongue. The cocoa plant grows in the mountains of Colombia and Bolivia, and it was stated that it was a gift from the sun god. Coca leaves were consumed during religious ceremonies and while working in gold and silver mines. In the Victorian era, the alkaloid cocaine was extracted from the coca leaf, and this led to a range of preparations using coca extract as the active ingredient. One of the most popular beverages was vin mariani, a mixture of fortified wine and cocaine which became popular among the rich and famous. Many other cocaine beverages were marketed around this time, including Coca-Cola. At the time, it contained extracts from the coca nut containing caffeine and coca leaf containing cocaine to form a tonic beverage. Sigmund Freud tried cocaine and extolled its effect in his glowing treatise on cocaine. Coming to non-medical use of psychoactive drugs, amphetamine and its uses. The plant mahuang was used as herbal remedy in China for many centuries. In 1924, its active ingredient, ephedrine, was isolated and shown to be effective as a treatment for asthma since it facilitates breathing by dilating the bronchioles in the lungs. In the United States of America, fears arose about the supplies of ephedra from China running out. So, pharmaceutical companies attempted to find a replacement. This led to the rediscovery of amphetamine. It was routinely supplied to special operation groups, for example, Army, who worked behind enemy lines for extended periods and was also used more widely. After the World War II, many civilian workers were addicted to amphetamines. This problem was tackled successfully by the Japanese government by severely restricting the manufacture and commercial distribution of all stimulant drugs. In post-war America, amphetamines were used by students cramming for exams and long-distance lorry drivers crossing the continent on extended runs. Amphetamine is generally administered as oral capsules. This route results in gradual increase in drug concentration, which peaks in around an hour and maintains effective drug levels for 8 to 12 hours. Of all the administration routes, it is the safest and is always used when amphetamines are given medically. Amphetamine can also be injected when it results in an immediate hit or rush. This far more dangerous route is only used by recreational drug users who have developed tolerance to oral doses. Let us now discuss about problems associated with amphetamine injecting. When Peruvians chew coca leaves, the slow oral absorption results in a steady supply of cocaine into the circulation. This rather inefficient route produces comparatively low concentrations of cocaine and is thus associated with few drug-related problems. In contrast, when recreational users sniff or snort cocaine, the thin capillaries in the nasal cavity readily absorb this small chemical into the blood circulation, producing the rapid hit or rush. Cocaine can also be injected, although this is dangerous route causes the same types of problems as intravenous amphetamine. It can be also smoked in its crystalline or free base form as crack cocaine. This produces an even stronger hit than snorting. The nasal route produces a hit within 3 minutes, whereas smoking crack produces a bolus of cocaine which reaches the brain 5 to 10 seconds later. The strength and immediacy of these effects, coupled with the rapid but equally severe rebound effects, makes crack cocaine one of the most addictive of all drugs, a dubious distinction it shares with inhaled or smoked methamphetamine or ice. In neurochemical terms, amphetamine and cocaine boost monoamine activity. Amphetamine has a threefold mode of action. First, it causes dopamine and noradrenaline to leak into the synaptic cleft. Second, it boosts the amount of transmission released during an action potential. And third, it inhibits the reuptake of neurotransmitter back into presynaptic vesicles. These three modes all result in more neurotransmitter being available at the synapse, thus generating an increase in postsynaptic stimulation. Cocaine exerts a similar overall effect, but mainly by reuptake inhibition. The main neurotransmitters affected are dopamine and noradrenaline, although serotonin is boosted to a lesser extent. Let us now talk about one more objective, which is psychological effects in novice drug users. The initial effects of a small dose of amphetamine or cocaine are often very positive. These include feelings of alertness, increased energy, feelings of being powerful, and a range of other positive mood states. The drug user often feels more confident and livelier and perceives the world as more interesting and pleasurable. These positive moods are caused by stimulation of the median forebrain bundle, a tract of dopaminergic nerve fibers in the core of the brain, which underlies reward and pleasure. Amphetamine and cocaine boost activity in these dopaminergic nerve tracts and hence increase the strength and intensity of these primary reward activities. This boost in activity leads to a greater mental vigilance and physical endurance. The combination of strong feelings of irritability, suspiciousness, power, or invincibility may result in extremely dangerous behavior. Thus, cocaine and amphetamine are both associated with acts of violence. Amphetamine and cocaine can also induce stereotypy, or repetitive movements in laboratory rats, and similar behavior is also displayed by human recreational users with motor tics and repetitive movements after high doses. Central nervous system stimulants also have strong sympathomimetic effects. The increased heart rate and blood pressure can lead to an increased chance of cardiac arrest or cerebrovascular stroke, although most cardiac problems occur in regular users due to repeated drug-induced stress on the heart and circulatory system. Coming to another objective of today's lecture, which is regular stimulant use, it is tolerance and related problems. Repeated drug use can lead to tolerance, where the same dose of drug has diminishing physiological and psychological effects. Regular stimulant users need to increase their dosage if they wish to generate the same strength of effect. For instance, a novice amphetamine user may start with a single oral dose of 5 or 10 mg and may stick to that dosage if they take it only rarely. But once they start using it more regularly, their friends and more experienced peers may suggest taking several tablets together. Several months later, they may be using 50 mg each time, but tolerance will still occur to this higher dose. Eventually, they may need to increase their daily consumption by 1000 mg or more, but this can be very costly. They may graduate to the more effective but far more dangerous route of intravenous injection. This generates a rapid upsurge in drug and a more powerful rush, but further tolerance will still develop. Another problem is cross-tolerance, where tolerance to one drug affects any other drug with a similar neurochemical profile. Regular dosing with amphetamine leads to the reduced density of dopamine and noradrenaline postsynaptic receptors, which is the neurochemical basis for drug tolerance. But this means that any other drug that affects dopamine or noradrenaline will also be affected. Thus, a regular amphetamine user will display tolerance to cocaine even though they have never taken it before. Cross-tolerance has important practical implications for recreational stimulant users. If they have developed tolerance to one drug, it will not be particularly effective to try other drugs within the same class. Health consequences of stimulant abuse, acute health problems are those that directly follow drug ingestion, whereas chronic problems develop after repeated use. Stimulants such as amphetamine or cocaine can affect a wide range of physiological functions. All drugs within this class are sympathomimetic, which is they boost or mimic the sympathetic nervous system. This is the part of autonomic nervous system concerned with preparing the body for action. Sympathetic nervous system stimulation will lead to increased heart rate, faster breathing, increased body temperature, and a redistribution of the blood from the gut towards the muscles in order to prepare the body for flight or fight. By boosting sympathetic nervous system activity, stimulant drugs facilitate physical activity and alertness, which is why their use is strongly associated with all-night clubbing and dancing. Another function affected is sexual behavior, and a minority of users use stimulants primarily for enhanced sexual performance, although others state that quality of the experience is not increased. The acute boost in sympathetic activity induced by cocaine or amphetamine can have fatal consequences. Death can occur because of the cerebral convulsions or cardiac arrest. Most fatalities occur in those using high doses, following the development of neuronal tolerance. Overdosing can also occur with illicit drug supplies that are less adulterated and thus purer. The general health of regular stimulant users tends to be poor since they fail to eat regularly, lose weight, and are more susceptible to diseases. Snorting cocaine leads to a thinning of septum in the nose. It becomes increasingly tender and then develops holes or lesions. The small chemical size of cocaine and amphetamine allowed them to readily cross the placenta, so that pregnant drug users have an increased incidence of spontaneous abortion, fetal death, and birth complications. Live babies of cocaine using mothers tend to be underweighted and can show signs of acute drugs withdrawal. Let us now discuss the last objective, which is concept of drugs in social groups. Drugs-related problems are not restricted to socially disadvantaged groups. Stimulant drugs can be expensive and their use is often associated with the affluent, young, and upwardly mobile. Cocaine use, cocaine dependence, and cocaine-related deaths are regularly reported among Hollywood film stars, supermodels, sports personalities, and financial dealers. Across all social groups, there is also an association with the personality dimension of sensation seeking, with stimulant drug users reporting a desire for fast action, risk-taking, and immediate gratification. But while the immediate drug effects are often seductively exciting, their regular use makes people increasingly suspicious and untrustworthy. Some users become small-time dealers in order to fund their own drug taking. Various substitute medications have been investigated as potential aids during the immediate withdrawal period, but placebo-controlled trials show that they provide little real assistance. The main problem is how to prevent relapse, as it is with every other form of drug addiction. The former addict's network of friends and acquaintances are often involved with same illicit drugs, which provide a core for their lifestyle. Furthermore, many regular users become small-time dealers so that their financial income becomes dependent on drugs. As with alcohol dependence and opiate addiction, a fundamental change in lifestyle and friendship networks is necessary to prevent relapse. When amphetamine was first introduced, it was seen as potentially useful for a range of clinical disorders. Amphetamine inhalers were used to relieve the symptoms of asthma for many years until bronchodilator drugs were developed. Newer drugs such as salbutamol can widen the bronchioles to facilitate breathing without modifying alertness. Novocaine or Procaine was developed from cocaine and is now widely used during dental surgery. An injection of Novocaine blocks the peripheral pain messages from the tooth to the brain stem so that pain perception does not occur. Stimulant drugs are banned by the International Olympics Committee and all other major sports organizations. This is because they can improve athletic performance, sometimes quite dramatically. The main clinical disorder for which amphetamine is currently prescribed is narcolepsy. This is a rare disorder where the person falls asleep suddenly during the daytime with little warning. The fast electroencephalograph brainwaves needed for alertness rapidly change to slower brainwaves indicative of sleep in a few seconds. This disabling disorder limits the range of potential occupations for narcolepsy sufferers. Thus, they cannot drive or use dangerous machinery. However, by boosting the arousal system, amphetamine can reduce the incidence of narcoleptic episodes. The other main area where stimulant drugs are prescribed is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. An increasing number of young children are being diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. They display short attention spans, find it difficult to sit still, often sleep for short periods, and are seen as disruptive at school. Several stimulant drugs have been shown to be clinically useful in ADHD, including amphetamine, methylphenidate, Ritalin, and Pamolene. Placebo-controlled trials have shown that they improve attention span and allow children to undertake their school work more effectively. in the United States of America, the number of child prescriptions for methylphenidate rose by 500% in the mid-1990s, while an even more dramatic rise in prescriptions from a near-zero baseline has occurred during this period in the United Kingdom. Possible sources include artificial food additives, junk foods, or otherwise poor diets. Another is less appropriate modes of play, including games, watching television, or reading books rather than physically tiring psychosocial sports like football. More of the school curriculum is being dedicated to narrow convergent skills such as writing, mathematics, and reading or computer terminal work. This has led to a reduction in the time available for physical exercise, non-directed play, and other creative activities. Another problem may be that many parents are in full-time employment and intolerant of the childish demands of their children. Several amphetamine derivatives have weak effects on alertness but comparatively stronger appetite suppression effects. The attempt to achieve permanent weight loss through anorectic drugs is always problematical for the same reason that any short-term dieting is ineffective. The use of stimulant anorectic for weight control is also inadvisable because of their addiction potential. Another appetite suppressant is phenfluramine, which, although an amphetamine derivative, has a different neurochemical profile and comparatively weak mood and cognitive effects. Strychnine is a convulsant used commercially as a rat poison. However, at low doses it can act as a central nervous system stimulant. Small amounts of strychnine are sometimes present in LSD tablets produced in illicit laboratories. It has been suggested that the degree to which an LSD tablet is altering may reflect its strychnine content. Cut or cut leaves are grown in Ethiopia and other countries on the Horn of Africa. When chewed, the active ingredient cathinone is released, with effects broadly similar to those of amphetamine, so it is also very addictive. Cut leaves are legally imported into many Western European ports, and during the 1990s, their use spread from the original immigrant users to the wider population. That brings us to the end of the topic. Thanks for watching.